Yeah, sure thing. So I'm talking about NeuroCentrx. We're developing an abuse-deterrent oral ketamine for severe depression. So there are a fair number of things I won't be able to share today. We'll have a series of press announcements in the next few months, both prior to JP Morgan and then directly after. Essentially a new fundraising announcement, a new team member announcement, and a board expansion of our clinical advisory board. So what we'll jump into is kind of where we're at today. Just click ahead. So we're closing a co-funding round that will complete a clinical trial, a phase 2 trial. It's mainly funded by a new funding source. So we'll announce that funding in the next couple of months, but we're closing this small round, are mostly subscribed. So we're closing this through before Christmas, and we'll have a second close in the new year. So there's still a little space in that financing round. But we have the backing of our initial funders. So at the seed stage, that's what I'll talk about today, is the work we've been doing through the seed stage to get the company funding. We had the support of O2H, Scottish Enterprise, seed funders in Scotland, where the company was founded. But overall, we're looking to go through.
Speak up a bit.
Yeah, sure thing.
Sorry.
Yeah, we're looking to go through phase 2 proof of concept to deliver several POC trials in severe depression disorders. We have been manufacturing drug for a while. We'll offer a drug that's manufactured near scale. And the big technology of the company that we're moving forward with is telehealth support. So a companion prescription device to support oral ketamine in a safety-first sort of way. Click ahead. I'll describe some of the work we've been doing in the seed stage that makes us think this is possible. So when we first funded the company, we were doing phase 1 trials down at the Maudsley Clinic down in London. For years, on an emergency basis, they've been essentially in clinic experimenting with oral forms of ketamine for their most severe patients. So they have patients who come to clinic and get either IV ketamine. For a while, there's a nasal spray form of ketamine that was available in the UK. And then in their specialty compounding pharmacies and the clinic, they can make oral forms for patients in high need. And they've actually been distributing those on a small basis to patients who then go home with these medications. So this is controlled inside an NHS trust. It's safe. There's community nursing and plenty of patient follow-up to make this possible for patients. But it gave us essentially the vision of a safe oral ketamine care pathway. And again, as drug developers, we're thinking you can develop a label, you can develop a product in the same way that FDA and other agencies can accept. Click ahead. So essentially, we're reformatting a pathway and getting a new drug label. What we're inventing is we call basically a hospital-to-home care pathway. So as where patients come into clinic now and can get an IV treatment, they need to keep coming back to clinic to get that IV treatment, really for many months and years. This happens in the US right now with this nasal spray form of ketamine, where patients are essentially taking it for years, but must come back to clinic every week, every other week, at best once a month, when they're in maintenance phase treatment. What we believe, what we'll be developing in our phase 2 trials is a new pathway with an oral ketamine that's safe and a companion prescription software that makes it safe. So essentially the patient goes through the same pathway, they present to clinic, they spent several weeks essentially acclimating to the treatment, gaining a benefit. Usually their depression will resolve during this time. And at that moment, there's essentially a risk assessment where the patient can be distributed in a small controlled amount. And with our patented technology, it's abuse-deterrent, so it's safe for everybody once it goes into the community. But the patient can go home without prescription. Likewise, what's happening now is a form what they call software-enhanced prescription support. So we think there are digital care components that you can build into the label that will be approved at the time of the drug. FDA has this pathway, and that'll basically be a new type of prescription approval. But essentially something that supports the patient, supports the clinician, through a journey that's kind of proven by our, we say, like living proof at King's College. But we'll be doing this inside of our trials. Go ahead and click ahead. That's the overall development plan. We think with just a few proof of concept studies. So we've got as many as 3 protocols. We're focused on 2, and I'll describe those today. We can reach this clinical proof of concept for a new ketamine care pathway. Oh, sorry. Look at that. The basic company strategy, though, is to partner with developers who are looking at this space. So we know Janssen is going up over $1 billion in sales next year. They're still forecasting $5 billion in sales for a nasal spray that you have to come to clinic for all the time. We think if there's a competitive oral standard that can move home with patients, but be safe enough, then you can be a compelling market proposition against them. We've been in phase one. We've delivered these milestones. We have this kind of vision and really core IP about how this is going to work in a POC trial. Go right ahead. What we'll really be seeking in the next trial is 2 possible indications. So more or less our first trial in bipolar depression, that's treatment resistant, is mainly fully funded with this co-funding round. We'll be out next year seeking basically like a Series A funding. This number is probably a little small right now. It'll probably take us up to maybe $20 million to do another POC study in the lead indication. So that's major depression that everybody knows. So treatment-resistant forms of depression where patients have failed up to 2 prior lines of therapy most immediately. There's nothing for them. Really what's available is this nasal spray form, and it's not available in the UK. It's both too expensive, it kind of hasn't been built onto most of the UK or European markets. So, there's a compelling proposition for patient benefit and patient need. Go right ahead. What I'll share today is about the trial that we are funding. It'll be coming up this year. So it's a focused trial on bipolar depression, treatment-resistant forms. So these are patients who have had prior mania, schizophrenia, and are mainly cycling down to where in their lives they spend about 70% of their time often depressed. And when it's treatment-resistant, they've failed multiple prior lines of therapy. This is kind of ultra high unmet need. These are ultra precarious patients. Folks in this kind of situation usually describe 50% of them have been to the hospital this year for their depression. As many or that or more will describe suicidal ideations or attempts. And so that's the level of kind of need, and that's what we're funding. What we want to show here is that because of the care pathway that we've seen at King's, because of what's understood about our drug product and what's understood about this care pathway that we're building, we've got a lot of the clinical trial conduct figured out, and we believe substantially de-risked for new funding and for achieving POC. So essentially this care protocol of titrating in, getting benefit, doing a risk assessment, moving home with a patient, we think we've got most of that pathway figured out. So we present a pretty de-risked phase 2 concept. But we'll be delivering the kind of standard outcomes for these trials, so we should be able to prove clinical benefit, clinical effect. Most of the parameters of our kind of safety management system will be validated by this trial and by our second indication. So we think we're showing a package that's phase 3, what we really believe is almost market ready. Our doctors at King's have oral forms they give to patients now. They know the doses, they know the forms, they know they work. What we need to show is safety and a safety system the agency can approve. Okay. This is one potential partner we've been talking through, but the idea of software support, so software enhanced medicines, we think is both now, in the future, and especially in mental health applications, part of the product journey of most of these new agents, and even an old agent like ketamine. But essentially the key safety parameters that you want out of this, that we all want for people to be safe, for people to be able to take this, but still maintain benefit, are going to be increasingly available in prescription software devices. So this is one vignette of the potential things one of these vendors can do. But if you're taking ketamine, both in the clinic and at home, there need to be several key safety requirements. Your blood pressure needs to be monitored. The amount of sedation that you're undergoing needs to be monitored. Any disturbances, hallucinations that you're having, and the risk of those need to be monitored. We can go all the way from offering a nurse that must be there, both in clinic or with you at home, over video link, and patient-reported outcomes. So patients can do things on phones that are suitable safety surrogates to maintain safety in home.
What's your commercial relationship with this technology? You're pitching this tech, but is it yours?
Mix and match. So we'll be building a phase 2 prototype. And then this might be our preferred vendor, but this is kind of the pathway. So,
how can you make sure that the FDA must be very worried about abuse? Is the tech helping you sort of resolve some of those issues? I mean, ketamine is a very street drug. Could be an adult takes it home and tries to sniff it. So, what's to stop them doing that?
So when we founded the company, one thing is on abuse deterrence in the capsule. Some technologies to mitigate abuse. It's essentially a sticky gel. So it's the same stuff that's done to opioids now. So it prevents the main kind of high exposure, the things drug addicts and abusers are known to do to kind of get around stuff. The opportunity here to build in a full commercial franchise where everything from the opioid era we've learned about, everything we know about kind of the street reputation of ketamine, we know a lot about. these sort of enhancements can make that journey possible. So patient adherence, direct monitoring of patient consumption. This is what AI Cure started their company around, mainly for people with very bad mental health illnesses who struggle with medicine accountability and dosing. So they have concurrent AI-enabled registration of a ingestion of the right dose and only the right dose, and medication adherence and accountability. Patients will be distributed a small little packet. They have to come back with it. They have to have mainly shown that they've taken it concurrently at the time that they've taken it. They'll come back the next week with that log, and it'll all be done mainly on their phone.
And if they try to sniff it, turns to glue.
Done. That's what we founded the company around. This is the
So have
second
you been
plate.
to the regulators with that, and the FDA in particular, bearing in mind the fentanyl, OxyContin,
Yeah, we think they'll be quite motivated.
No, wasn't think. Have you been to them?
We are getting our IND this year.
Right, okay.
So the
But
situation.
nothing beforehand, nothing informal.
We met with the MHRA. So right now, King has been doing this. They have an upcoming protocol with patients with severe anorexia. We had a discussion with the agency, and I think they'd be happy to view this. We talked about the potential for software logging. They said it has to meet the REMS requirements that's Janssen did with their Spravato label. So we know the pathway. We need to show them the prototype. And that's what we're doing this year and inside the funded trial.
What is your IP play? Is it formulation? I mean, there's a lot of ketamine companies out there.
Yeah, so we think it's the only patent that we think we have to have an immediate release profile. So IV and nasal ketamine work, but they come into your body pretty quickly. You probably by oral. It's been proven by our folks and actually tons of compound pharmacies in the US that you will get benefit if you have an immediate release profile. You need to retain abuse deterrence. And that is the key formulation patent of the company. It can probably be beat up and beat around in the long term. This is the bigger franchise play. This is a novel registration pathway.
You mentioned safety being a key differentiator, but you haven't shown any PK or safety data.
Yeah, sure. So the phase 1 that we did with a prototype where
To show that it's key data, right?
it's in the back, sorry.
Just a quick question. I noticed you had a placebo arm. I was wondering how you got that through the ethics committee at the Maudsley, and then how you're going to determine those people are clean if they're not in a semi-secure facility, because a lot of psych trials you get they're not placebo at all, and then you get a lot of contamination. I just wondered A, how ethics to prove that, and B, how you're going to monitor them. Are you going to take bloods? What are you going to do?
With regard to placebo.
Well, are they a truly placebo arm? And again, is it ethically right? Ethically, should you be putting on a placebo? And if I was on the Maudsley ethics committee, I might question it.
In opposition to what?
Well, they're not getting treatment, and they may need treatment.
So the placebo control, sorry to be clear, these are kind of tricky trial design strategies. So folks who are treatment resistant will have failed on their life.
Oh, I see.
And they just stay on the prior.
So it's not. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they've got a lot of meds in their life to make life go on, but they'll have failed and they're basically seeking a new remission. So it's add on to.
I see what you mean.
Yeah, sorry.
I need to move you on.
Yeah, sorry.
Because do you just want to flick through?
Yeah, so this is changing a bunch. Minimally, we're bringing on this chief medical officer who founded Harvard Boston's main ketamine clinic. He's a person who's been treating patients for decades. So this is Alan, and basically reconfiguring the board. So a new US chair, 2 new US directors, and really what we find that most of this proposition makes sense in the US where there's such an established market and problematic prescribing with IV clinics and oral compound pharmacies. So a very different market over there, but where people see the need and opportunity. So that's us.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.